So a special welcome to everybody this evening for joining in our class, the BDF, on a very important topic, debt and wealth, topic on inheritance. Very, very important for us to take note of what we have done thus far as we wait for others to join in into the classroom, inshallah. Just a gentle reminder, amongst the subject matter that we discussed up to this point is that we looked at a very, very valuable lesson when it comes to wealth. That wealth is not ours, and that's one of the first principles that we must always get into our thinking and our psyche, that debt and wealth, there are two things that we tell ourselves that we know we are in control of, but we have no control of our debt, and we have no control of our wealth at the point of time when we would die. Notwithstanding that, we are given the privilege to take full control of a third of our wealth and distribute it according to a will, which we call in Arabic wasiya. And that is important for us to remember. 1/3 of our wealth is what we prepare into a will and call it a wasiya. And what is the purpose of the wasiya? The wasiya is to inform us and to inform those whom will carry out or execute what we desire of our wealth, what Allah allows us from the third of all of the wealth that we are blessed with at the point of our death to be distributed accordingly with the free will and orders that we set in relationship to that third. However, the relationship of the wealth of what we leave behind from our wealth is now going to be calculated according to the laws of Allah in the fractions or the portions of distribution according to Quran. And we have mentioned that a person cannot fix a will. A person cannot fix a will in relationship to some other means other than the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set. And that is to say, we cannot tell ourselves what portion to give different to that what the Quran has already adjusted to or actually set for us to follow as a guideline. So knowing that what the Quran said, we have to consider what we are doing whilst we are alive. And what I mean to say, we're not trying to outsmart what Allah is saying, What I'm saying is that if you want to equitably share from your wealth, if you want to assist someone of your family members, if you want to do something for someone, you can do that whilst you are alive, and there's no harm, there's no sin, and nothing is wrong with that. But we should, however, make sure and leave some proportion, some portion of our wealth, so that our children and our wife or husband will benefit out of our wealth. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ emphasized, that we should leave for them and do not just make them destitute, orphans, or widow. But we should ensure that they have some level or some means of benefit out of the wealth that we have left behind. So when it comes to that aspect of our wealth, one should consider what is mentioned in relationship to that and what is done in relationship to that, meaning that we have to ensure that we actually get the benefit coming our way from our wealth, meaning when we leave this world, what benefit? The rewards and the blessings for fulfilling the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, when we look at that, then we are really benefiting out of the obedience as a believer when it comes to the relationship of our wealth. And subhanallah, when we look at that, we tell ourselves that this is the direction that we should go in, and this is the direction that we are commanded to go in. Not just to go in, but we are commanded to go in that direction. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His infinite mercy, give us that understanding. And let's look at a few other important points as we share and understand what was done before. We also looked at a very important part, what will make our will valid and what will make our will not being valid. Meaning that what we do with our will is in relationship to what is important to us to have that will valid before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of the different types of things we have discussed, and we're not going to go into details, but it is important for you to read through these things, read through these notes that I have given to you and what we have brought up on the slides to show and understand that our wealth must be done and prepared in a way that will actually show that our will is valid and it is real and it is of benefit and it is of what we need to prepare our will as. So looking at those things, we can tell what is a valid will and what is an invalid will. And we know that if we do any transaction in that will, according to what goes against the Quran and the Sunnah in relationship to what is mentioned when it comes to our will, then we know that we are definitely making a will that is invalid. And if we are going to prepare a will, we know of different circumstances. For example, again, if we have debts or if we have money being owed to us, all of these considerations must be taken care of in our will. And if not being done, then the will becomes invalid. If we hide things that should actually be brought forward, if we have not paid our meher to our wives, if we have not disclosed the relationship between us and our children in relationship to what is valid for them in terms of what we owe and what we do, what we are to receive from others who owe us. All of these things must be cleared. Do not leave things by chance that your children will have to find out only after some time or someone files some injunction against your family for something that or business transaction that you have probably not dealt with whilst you're alive. Now, this could have happened probably by sudden death or something like that. But if you grow into a relationship, and it's important, that's why the Prophet ﷺ emphasized that you are in business, you're doing something, you're doing a transaction, faktubu, that we should write it down. Remember, write down any type of transaction that we are doing. Why we should write it down? Because these transactions is what must be considered whilst we are in a state when we cannot do anything for ourselves. And that means when we have left this world, and therefore ensure that our will is properly well secured. We looked at at our wealth when we are speaking about will in relationship to the types of will that we have on the law of the lands, that we can see that we can look at and how our will as a Muslim is subject to the laws of the land. And if it is perchance that we have not done a will that is actually an Islamic will and have it some way authenticated by some JP, as we would call it in our local land, those who would be in a way that recognize the law, recognize their adjudication amongst the communities that people will go to them for different types of things, legal aid. Likewise, you can do it with a lawyer, or you can have your stuff that you have prepared and done with a consensus amongst the family who you're leaving behind, that this is what you want and your desires are. When these things are fulfilled, then you're actually setting yourself in a way that all that is required for you, all that is prepared for you in that will is in accordance with what is pleasing. And therefore, the laws of the land, the people around you, there's no need for contention, and no one to contest that will to say that the will is like X, Y, or Z or the other. So therefore, prepare yourselves in a manner like this. And when you are doing this, it's not like you are preparing to die tomorrow or next week and why I should have will. No, it's not about that. It is not about that. It is about understanding the importance of not leaving your family, because death is uncertain, the time is uncertain of when we are going to leave this world. And we cannot tell the circumstances of any situation as of tonight, even until tomorrow, and even the day after that. We cannot say, and we don't know. And therefore, we must be considerate of those factors that are uncertain and prepare ourselves so that our family, when we leave this world, are not left in a state that they are undone, in a condition that is very difficult for them to cope with what we have left with them. And sometimes we would hear when we deal with situations that, he never said these things, how we could do something like that, or how she could have done something like that without letting us know. And all the surprises, all of these things that you find as a surprise now come to light. And when it comes to light, then we are looking at how we can remedy the situation. You're leaving your family to solve issues or problems that cannot really be solved except and not only until you, the individual, have done the right thing. So let's think about that whilst we're in preparation of our will. And therefore, I just want to add to it from all the notes that were given in relationships thus far is that when a family member dies, as a Muslim, it's important for us to take note of a very important point, and that point being that we should seek the advice of a scholar or a learned person, be it in terms of the deen, and let that person advise us, or maybe there may be a legal aid within an organization, that an Islamic organization that deals with wills and the distribution of estates and so on. Go to that place, go to that institution or that organization and seek the necessary Islamic legal advice and opinions that will be beneficial for you and your family and your loved ones. That is the best way out. Don't try to take the matter into your own hand, even though you might be right. Reason being, what is the reason for that? Is because sometimes we see that you get the bad name, as you would say. You are the one who people look at and think that, they become angry with you because you are not fair, you're not just. The fact is that you might be just, but because of you being in the position that you are in as the executor or as the one who is in charge of the estate, sometimes they feel that you are taking advantage of them and you have a better knowledge or a better working hand of to take what is better for you to get out of the whole situation. And that leaves a level of impartiality, bias. From your side, you have that level of impartiality and you're totally, you're clear of your level of being fair. But in the eyes of others, it may not look or be so. So therefore, let's tell ourselves or ask ourselves, whilst we would consider the factors that I've mentioned before in consideration of this will, all of these things, and then tell ourselves, we have to move forward in the right way when it comes to our will. We have to make the correct choices and we have to make the correct decision when it comes to our will and look at the benefit of it as we move forward. So I say, let's find someone who will benefit us. So we'll now look at some of the notes as we continue, and then we'll move across back again into a little discussion. And remember, I asked 3 simple questions last week, and I hope you all did take some time to do some little check on the notes and see if you can find any answer to these questions. And that is, one was Islamic will. We had mentioned what for a valid will. The Islamic word for will is in Arabic. What is the word in Arabic for an Islamic will? Wasiya. Remember that word, wasiya. I've given you the answer, but inshallah, I want you to bear that note. If you had wasiya, it means you have had it, the correct answer. And that means we are speaking about the 1/3 portion of the will. Next, we prepare a will because A, it is Allah's wealth. B, Allah commands us to do so. C, to ensure the right person gets it. And D, all of the above. I think the answer should be all of the above, because all of these things indicate why we do prepare a will. If you look at the notes, these would indicate that all these factors are very important in the preparation of a will. I also mentioned the next question to you, and that was, under Islamic law, as a Muslim, we can only distribute in our wasi, our will, 1/3, 2/3, 1/4, or 1/8 of the wealth. Which portion, what fraction of our wealth can we distribute? 1/3, 2/3, 1/4, 1/8. Remember, the wasiyah, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given permission up to 1/3. So only 1/3 of our wealth we have the privilege of distribution to our own free will in relationship to sadaqatun jariyah, that which will benefit us when we leave this world. So in our notes, we have reached at the point where we looked at the sisters in a will. And we said that women, and we discussed in our last class, that they are amongst the chosen and beneficial ones within our will. Okay, and so we look at the will, and we know that women, from an Islamic perspective, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them a great, great benefit and a reward, that they are indeed ones who Allah has chosen and given a special status and izzat and honor, that they can benefit from a will. And from an Islamic perspective, when we look at the other religions and we look at our society that we live in today, and I've mentioned in particular a situation in India, and India only up to 2005 that they had made some alterations to their laws when it comes to women inheriting their wealth. Tonight, inshallah, we want to continue and look at where and what is important as male when it comes to us sharing the wealth with our sisters, and never should they be left out. However, the proportion of to a male or a female, as we have mentioned, they are not the same. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we look at that note there on page 9, as we start on page 9, that for men is a share of what the parents and close relatives leave, and for women is a share of what the parents and close relatives leave, be it a little or much. An obligatory share is for both male and female, so a woman cannot be deprived of that right of having a share. Violating the laws of inheritance is very, very scary, the Quran. And notice the ayah that was mentioned here to us in this chapter here, Surah 4, and that's Surah 4, verse 7 in Surah An-Nisa. And we go on again to here, violating the laws of inheritance, how dangerous it can be for us when it comes to violating the laws of inheritance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَمَن يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَهُ يُدْخِلُهُ نَارًا خَالِدًا فِيهَا وَلَهُ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. The Arabic here, and it's again the same Surah An-Nisa, Surah number 4, verse 14. In other words, the entire chapter from verse 7 onwards to this point, we're already speaking about the rights of a female inheriting and the benefit of her getting her rights. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns the males. Allah warns the males in particular. And he who disobeys Allah and his messenger and transgress the bounds set by him, he shall Allah cause to enter the fire. There he will abide, a humiliating chastisement which awaits. وَلَهُ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ, a serious punishment. And notice here, it didn't talk about, and whoever disobeys Allah, and whoever disbelieves, it doesn't talk about disbelief here, it talks about disobey. Disobeying the command of Allah in relationship to inheritance, the laws of Allah. وَمَن يَعْصِ اللَّهَ, who would go against it, disobey it, refuse to follow what Allah says in the Quran when it comes to the relationship of sharing our wealth, or the wealth that is left behind by our parents or our spouse, or as the case would be, the wife and her daughter and her sons, and the sons decides that the wife or their mother or their sister should not get anything, or they're not deserving because we are the ones who are taking care of them. No, Allah already dictates in the Quran and clears in the Quran that there's a specific share for these people, these women, and therefore we cannot go against it. And if we go against it, we note that we are disobeying the command of Allah, and disobeying the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed puts us at a position where we can earn the punishment of the hellfire. May Allah save us from that, inshallah. Allahumma ameen. A child in the womb. Let's look at a child in the womb of the mother. And who is the child in the womb of the mother? Subhanallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran a number of verses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks and He says to us in relationship to the child in the womb as to who is this child and what is this child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this because not only that we see a child in the womb, but Allah describes this child. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put character. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the understanding for us to know that this is something that is there and there is some way and benefit for you to actually look at and understand who or what is in the womb of the mother. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, in Surah Ali Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and surely, He says, and surely, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, and surely, He says, and surely, subhanallah. Let's make a thing here, right? Okay, good. Surely, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, and surely, nothing is hidden from Him in the earth or in the heavens. Nothing is hidden from Allah in the earth or in the heavens. He it is whom shapes you in the wombs as He likes. There is no God or no other creator other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He, the mighty, the wise. So Allah tells us firstly, it's Allah who makes us in the womb of our mothers. And if we were to just think about it, where did you and me come from? Where did we come from? Where is our existence? Where did we start from? We started with a mere drop of fluid. For a mere drop of fluid, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that in another ayat of the Quran. He says, "O people, if you should be in doubt as to the resurrection, the day of judgment, then consider that indeed we created you from dust," that is Adam alayhi salam, "then from a clinging clot, and then from a lump of flesh, formed and unformed, that we may show you, and we settled in the womb whom we will for a specified term." So the womb, Allah is saying that it's a specified term for you to be in the womb of your mother. Now, isn't it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing the process of a child in the womb of a mother and knowing the potential of this child coming into the world, and knowing that Allah is the one who prepares the ajal, the time of this child to come into the world, and the time that this child would leave this world, meaning as an adult, he grows old or she grows old. Subhanallah. Allah brings this knowledge forward about the womb and about this child in the womb. And then He says, and then we develop you that you may reach your time of maturity, meaning when you get older. So He speaks about the child and He speaks about the maturity of a person. And among you is he who is taken after that by death, early death. And among you is he who is returned to the most disrepute, meaning to grow old age, become very old. And then He says, so then know after one having knowledge nothing, and you, He says, and you see the earth barren and nothing, and you see the earth barren, but when we send down upon it rain, it quivers and swells and grows something of every beautiful kind. Subhanallah. This is just two ayats that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah 22 verse 5. And again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the child in the womb of the mother and says, Allah has extracted you from the wombs of your mothers. Allah akhraja min butuni ummahatikum. Allah brought you out of the wombs of your mothers. Not knowing a thing, and this not knowing a thing here means not knowing anything here means not that you didn't have knowledge or nothing what goes on in the child. We're talking about what the child hears in the womb and those type of things. What we're talking about, you have no control or knowledge of this particular incident taking place. Because Allah described in the other verse before we just discussed the time you're ajal coming into this world, the time you're leaving this world, all of this is known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, not knowing that He made hearing and vision for you and intellect for you, that perhaps you will be grateful. Intelligence, hearing, and seeing is for us to understand our purpose and our objective of life. And He's saying about a child, all of this is information about a child, so that we would know. And Allah knows that what every female carries and what the womb loses prematurely. So He's saying about what is going to come into the world alive and what the womb will lose prematurely or exceeds. And everything with Him is by due measure. Surah 13, verse 8. Again, Allah describes about the womb. All of these verses tells us of the term of the child in the womb. It tells us of the details of a child and if there's a miscarriage or whether the child comes out alive. So all of it entails a very important point when it comes to inheritance, and that is the child in the womb. That this child in the womb, subhanallah, is now that when you look at and read the ayats of the Quran in relationship to a child in the womb, we must not think that this child is not part of inheritance. No, Allah describes the qadar, His power, His relationship of a child in the womb in relationship to what is to be brought forth into the world, and that this child is also in a relationship to having inheritance. And therefore, in Islam, when we speak about a child in the womb and an abortion, abortion in Islam is not allowed except it is a case where there is dire straits, meaning that the woman's life is threatened by the womb. That means the child in the womb, sorry. And if the woman was raped, and out of that fear and that shame, this woman can abort this child on these circumstances. However, it is not out of a marital relationship that we should abort our children in fear of poverty or in fear that we are unable to take care of this child. And if we have fear of not taking care of the child, remember, there is no sin. We can also put our child in foster care. Now, our child does not become an adopted child. The child must always know that their parents, who are their parents, despite them being in our local Western society, where a child can be adopted. However, a child can be left in foster care, taken care of. A child can be ridat, he or she can be nursed by another female or taken care of by a wet nurse, as we would say, other than its mother. So in Islam, there is some level of leverage. If we cannot take care of a child, there may be people who do not have children and may be willing to look after this child as their own child, even though it is not their own child. So whilst we may consider all things, know that Allah's rizq and sustenance for our children is not our responsibility in the first instant. In other words, when a child is conceived, and we understand that this child is going to come to the world, so then parents get frightened. Okay, no way, how am I going to mind this child? And, I never wanted to have a child now. And all these different types of thoughts come through our mind and run through our system in trying how to deal with this situation. And sometimes you see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I say, and next one again, under all these circumstances, no matter what, these are children. And when they come into the world, they are right to having inheritance, whilst they're even in the womb of their mother. So a child, as we are told here, a child in the womb of its mother is competent to inherit provided it is born alive. A child in embryo is regarded as a living person, and as such, the property vested immediately in that child. So that property invested in that child will be given to that child. But if such a child in the womb is not born alive, the share already vested in it is divested, and it is presumed as if there was no such heir in the womb at all. And therefore, that person, the primogenitor, is a principle of inheritance under which the eldest son, and this is the next point we're looking at here. All right, this particular point that I'm speaking about here is that a terminology that we use, the primogeniture, where we use the principle that the eldest son of the deceased enjoys certain special privileges. Now, that can be said, but that is not really the position when it comes to who benefits out of the wealth of the parents. So we finished the one on the child, on the womb, and we're speaking about the elder. And if you would have a question concerning the child in the womb, you can always put it on the chat, and we can always answer it in the last 5 or 10 minutes or so, inshallah. Now, let's look a little bit about the adult son, who sometimes feel that when the father die, or he take over, or the mother dies, he should take over certain privileges or rights. No, that is not the case. And you know, we can study a number of factors and cases, and I just want to draw one, and I don't want to take too much time into it, but you have to understand like what it really means. For example, there could be a father and son business. You know, they have shares in a business together. All right, and this father and son, the son invested in the business, the son takes care of the business, whilst the father will do some level of work in the business and has some wealth and deeply invested into the business at the very beginning and continues to invest in the business. And sometimes, before you know it, the son feels that he owns the business and the father is sidelined. But this can never be the case until, and not until, the father who is there have to consider and have to look at the situation, you know, that this might be the biggest son and he looking after the business and taking care of the business. So I just give him the business, ignoring the other children in relationship to you, the father, and your share of the business. Now, bearing that in mind, you must always let that elder son or elder child understand that they're not the owner of the business 100%. There's some level of leverage and percentage, because you cannot ignore the fact that you have your wealth vested in it, and it may be your only source of income, whilst you may probably give to your other children different types of assets or other things that they may look forward to and benefit from. You have to make it clear to them that there's nothing in this business for you, or if there's a portion that you want to allot to those children, then you should do it in the presence of your eldest son or your daughter, or whoever be charged with the business with you or sharing the business with you. Because these factors make a big problem later on in life. And therefore we have to ensure that there's no such danger, no such harm to come our way with our children leaving a business like that. I brought this up because of the point I mentioned here, that the eldest son of the deceased enjoys certain special privileges, such privileges as I mentioned, concerning business, concerning land, concerning house, concerning a car, concerning certain things that that big child or big son or big daughter would have probably had an opportunity to take control of whilst you were, you know, in that state. And, you know, sometimes if that happens with your private vehicle or something like that, after your son grow a little older, your daughter grow older, and they have their license, well, daddy have a license now, I can drive, you know, and they give them the car, and after a few months you realize that they take over the car. Now, did you give them the car or just take over the car? We may not say anything because it's our children and we'll say, all right, that's okay. But we have other younger children who may be looking on, and therefore, you know, if anything would happen to you in that immediate time, what would you say? You just allow it to be said that the big son said, daddy had given me the car to drive on, I is the owner of the car. He gave me that car, that's my car. I don't think that is the approach that we should use towards that type of relationship, especially from an Islamic perspective, right? Maybe, you know, at times gone, we could probably think otherwise, but now having knowledge of Deen, we should note that certain rights are given to the elder sons or daughter, but that doesn't mean that they have rights of ownership, even while they will be interacting with us and being with us in business. So in an Islamic perspective, we would say that the eldest son of the deceased, whilst they might enjoy certain privileges and preferences whilst you are around with them, we cannot say to them that you are the rightful owners of these privileges of assets that you are allowed to utilize or be part or parcel of whilst I was acquiring it. and that must be cleared beforehand and even after the fact that they grow into the situation of being accustomed to having these things with them, or having, not I won't say possession, but having the knowledge or feeling that they are possessors of it and are utilizing it in that manner. So be careful of that situation. So Muslims, however, and we continue again, Muslim law does not recognize the rule of primogeniture, and all sons are treated equally. However, under the Sharia law, the eldest son has an exclusive right to inherit from the father. Okay, so he has the exclusive right to exclude on his father's garment or sword. If we think that is the case, you know, if Muslim law does not recognize that particular rule, and all sons are treated equally. However, under the Shia law, and that is under Shia law, it doesn't deal with Islamic law from a Muslim Hanafi school of law, or the Ahlus Sunnah, or with a Maliki school of law, or Gair Mukallid, or whether your other schools of law, be it from Maliki or Hanbali, or any of these other schools of law. It doesn't really matter, because under Shia law, it's a different principle. It's not bound by the Sharia principle that the Sunni Ahlus Sunnah actually follow. So the eldest son does not have the exclusive right according to our school of law, but according to the Shia, the eldest son has an exclusive right, which is like the above mentioned primogeniture. We have to understand that we don't get tied up in our society. Sometimes you go on the internet and you're looking for Islamic laws on inheritance, and you pull up on a Shia site and you're thinking that this is the real site, and you start to distribute your wealth according to the what? Shia calculations, okay? And the Shia calculations and the Shia guidelines, because they are automatic, as you would say, you know, they're software calculated systems set up already for Islamic law and inheritance. All you have to do, if you go on Islamic inheritance, you see they show you these automatic systems already set, already software already designed. You just have to type in the names of the people that you have. It will tell you who is excluded, who is entitled to receive, and the proportions that they are entitled to receive, and it'll work out the fraction proportion to the dot, to the exact point, and you will know who they are to receive and who will be excluded. So these are things that are already set, but next thing you go on a Shia site rather than on a site that is what Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So we have to be very careful about these things. That's why we must consider carefully what we are learning here in this class and in this setting in relationship towards wealth, and in particular, how we distribute our inheritance. Moving forward, we know that the Shias, the eldest son has an exclusive right to inherit his father's garments, swords, rings, and a copy of the Quran, provided that such eldest son is of sound mind and the father has left certain other properties besides these articles. Stepchildren, next category again. All right, so from a Shia point of view, we had all look at that, for example. Now let's look at stepchildren. All right, stepchildren. And who are the stepchildren? There is a relationship between a uterine and the consanguine. Also from the father side, the paternal side, we look at those children as well as stepchildren. So if you get into a marriage, a family relationship, where you have a mother comes into the marriage with her newlywed husband, but she brings into that family 2 children. And then she has children with this particular individual who's her husband now, and therefore there's stepchildren in that relationship, meaning the children of the woman, the mother in this instant. So who benefits? In this case, let's look at what we are told by the law is that stepchildren are not entitled to inherit the properties of their step-parents, right? And understand what I'm saying. The mother in this case came with what? Children. And then the father had died, but she had children with him. So only the children that the father had with her would be the only one that would benefit. But her children, which she would have had with some other relationship on the outside, or other husband, a previous marriage, then those children will not inherit from this husband. And that is what is clear to us as it would be. And in a similar manner, it would be for the husband, as opposed if the wife would die and he would have had children of his own, other than the children that he would have had with her. So the husband's children will benefit from him, and the children of his or hers, sorry, will not benefit from him, but her children with him will benefit, and his children will benefit. But the children, on the other hand, if she dies, that if he had children and he come into the marriage, they will not benefit. That is stepchildren on either side. So looking at that, stepchildren will not benefit or are entitled to inheritance the properties of their step-parents. Similarly, the step-parents too do not inherit from stepchildren. Very important that the stepchildren, in that case now, the step-parents too do not inherit from stepchildren. So it works vice versa, right? Now, as I mentioned before, if it is that you as an individual, okay, if you as an individual, you know, you have children, they may be stepchildren, they are good children to you, they are your wife's children, and in that case, so even if you're the husband and you have children and they are good to you, it is not that it is haram to spend on them, you know. You can spend on them, you can do everything for them, look after their needs, send them to school, look after their every basic need. And if these children grow up to well-to-do, they have their jobs, they have their incomes, they are earning, and you become the father that they know or the mother that they know, and they look after you, nothing is wrong with that. That is quite okay, very commendable on their behalf. But if it is that you want to give them something from your inheritance or from your benefit, then it must only be from the wasiya, the 1/3, or you can give them something whilst you are alive. That means your stepchildren, those children that are not your children, but children of your spouse, be it the wife or be it the husband. So you can give them, but give them whilst you are alive. Otherwise, they will not be recognized in your wealth of inheritance. Very important. It may be in that case. So if you die as a male and you have 2 children, for instance, you have a child that you have in 2 marriages, and I understand they say you can have 4 wives, up to 4 wives, and the children of all 4 wives, that they are all your children. And I'm drawing this attention to you because, you know, in Trinidad, we have secret halal wives, you know, secret halal wives with children. I mean, you know what I'm trying to get at. That sometimes men hide the relationship of to their first wife, the relationship that they have with a second wife on the outside, and they have children with this woman, and sometimes these children grow old. And the relationship was so nice and secretive that no one knows. But when death comes, all of a sudden you're seeing children appearing from all over the place. And you want to know, well, this is my daddy here, boy. This is my daddy. Everybody say, go and see your father. Look at there. You know, that's a serious kind of situation to deal with, because this could be a challenge for us to understand at that point in time who is really the children of this person. Stepchildren from the point of view for them, but for you, that is a real bona fide child as a father from children with other different women, or meaning other wives. Okay, so they will all stand to inherit. We'll mention that you're discussing this particular point of children and stepchildren. But when we're speaking about stepchildren, we're speaking about children that they are not yours, they belong to your spouse, be it the husband or be it the wife. And in like manner, if they are to help you, they can help you, they can give you from their inheritance, but whilst they are alive, they can give you from their asset base. But once you die, or once they die, there is nothing for you to get in that relationship from them in relationship to the wealth that they possess. Moving forward, for example, and we look at the example that is given here. For example, where a Muslim age marries a widowed wife, husband-wife, having a son from her previous husband. The son is a stepson of H, the husband that she has now. Who is the stepfather of this son? the stepfather and stepson or daughter cannot inherit each other's property. And that is very clear. We know about that, as I explained prior to this. The stepfather and stepson or daughter cannot inherit each other's property. The stepchild is competent to inherit from its natural father or natural mother. So he might have his father or mother outside of this particular arrangement and relationship where the father or the mother is in right now, but his father or mother might be living somewhere else in another relationship, and they die. The mother died or the father may die in whatever circumstance it may be, that this stepchild could go to that particular relationship now where he has his father or his genuine bona fide father or mother, and he can inherit from them at that situation, at that point. Okay, so the stepfather and stepson or daughter cannot inherit each other's property. The stepchild is competent to inherit from its natural father and natural mother. Similarly, the natural, so he says similarly, the natural father and natural mother can inherit from their natural sons and daughters. However, the stepbrothers or sisters can inherit each other's property. The stepbrothers and sisters. In other words, they are brothers and sisters of the same parent, of the same relationship, same mother or same father. They are stepchildren, but together as of the same relationship, they can benefit from each other. Thus, in the illustration given above, if a son or daughter is born out of the marriage of husband age, this second marriage here, and wife, the newly born child will be a stepbrother or sister of the son from wife and previous husband. These sons or daughters are competent to inherit from each other's property. Understand what I'm talking about here? That the father and mother now, the father and mother in this instant, they are presently together, but they had their stepchildren, but their stepchildren can be now having these stepbrothers and sisters that they're sharing with their new father or their new mother. They can inherit from each other. That's a different relationship. That's a different relationship when it comes to the father or the mother, because they'll be part of either of them. So the father in this instant is the blood father and the mother is the blood mother of this child. And this mother, if she dies, then this child, who is a stepchild, from the perspective of looking at this child from the other previous marriage, will also benefit from the mother or the father in the same relationship. So therefore, there is an understanding here that stepchildren can benefit from each other's in a relationship of inheritance. All right, we understand why, because they still share a blood relationship in brothers and sisters, but not that of the father, which is not the father. And neither could this child in this circumstance, who is only by the way of what? Be it a son or a daughter, and that father of this child has no relationship here. This child that you bear together in this current relationship cannot inherit or benefit from that. Understand, from the previous father in that case. Or your child as a father, as we have mentioned before, stepchildren, directly cannot benefit from you out of a next relationship. All right, so that was clear before, but we're talking about a child born into the relationship with you and that child, meaning these two children now, they can benefit from you because they are your children. On your other side, the mother's children, because of the fact that you have a child together, and therefore they are now entitled to receive, as your stepchildren are entitled to receive from their mother or from the father, as the case would be. I hope I have confused you so much I get real confused. We will discuss that more and I'll draw the charts, inshallah. These sons and daughters are competent, all right? These sons and daughters are competent to inherit each other's property. The stepbrothers or sisters may either inherit by uterine or consanguine. All right, so uterine meaning from the mother side or from the father side. Muslim law provides for mutual rights of inheritance between uterine and consanguine brothers and sisters, meaning the stepchildren and the real children of a marriage together. They benefit from each other. They can benefit from each other. So we understand up to this point, right? Now, I'll discuss in the chat. You'll see more of what we are speaking about, and I don't want to confuse you. And if you have any questions, please put it on the chat, because in the next couple of minutes, we're going on to the chat and we can discuss a few points. All right, let's look at the example that is given to here again to us, that honor of the person helping the widows and orphans. Struggle to help means to find means for their livelihood and try to fulfill their needs. Imam Nawawi says, struggle to help means find means for their livelihood and try to fulfill their needs. It is person who brings benefits to widows and the indigent persons. Ibn Hajar Asqalani, he mentions that the one who helps these people are indeed, they're going to find some level of benefit out of it. So let's note that the widow, meaning the wife, the widow, and we're going to finish off this page. The widow is a woman who is destined to lose her husband, who supports and provides for her. She is a woman who suffers really hard. This suffering is not only financial, but most of the time it is emotional and psychological suffering, because you're not losing just money, you're losing someone who comforts you, someone who takes care of you. And I like to share with you from a psychological aspect of it and the relationship. You know, sometimes, and I've heard this in cases where the husband dies and, you know, the mother remains behind, and, you know, she says, you know what? The only person who really talks to me, and I now understand, is my husband. My children, I cannot talk to them in the way I would have spoken to my husband or share things with my husband. I usually share with him on a daily basis. You know, so that relationship cuts off and that relationship goes away, and that has an effect on you, because you can no longer be that person who you could relate to and open up to in a particular way. That person goes, and therefore a woman has that level of emotion that comes about because of that. So don't just feel that she's losing financial alone, but she's also losing a psychological, emotional relationship that she shares with her husband. So a widow really loses in the long run, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala understands that clearly, and He tells us of why He have given them a iddat, not only just to see this child, this woman is pregnant, but also to understand the loss and how that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put itminan and tranquility and some level of strength for this woman to actually go through this particular stage of losing her husband. So when the husband dies, the widow has many financial rights. Understand that she has rights. She has the right to inherit from him, and it is not permissible for anyone to take away her inheritance without her acceptance. And we have spoken about women before, but this in particular to her husband. And remember, in India and different parts and different cultures, we have spoken about what happens to a woman when her husband dies. And if her husband doesn't leave for her enough money to fulfill her needs, and the children need, the society has to support her, and charity becomes a must for her. We must understand that sometimes we see people in our society when situations happen like this, and I know there are many commendable Muslims and communities and associations who look into these situations where we have families and we have situations coming about where they are in need, and we have widows in our society, and we should look after them and look after their needs. And not only just widowed, when it comes to looking after them, sometimes there are divorce situations where the women are left with the children, and they're left in a very deplorable state because the husband abandoned the situation of that relationship and not even looking after the caregiving of this child. And that's not our topic today, but we're just looking at that they also need to have some level of assistance. Now, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the one who looks after the widow or a poor woman or a poor person, is like a mujahid, a warrior who fights for Allah's cause, or like him who performs prayer, salah, all the night and fast all the days. Subhanallah, total obedience. Hadith found in Sahih Bukhari. All right, so we stop there, and then in the next session we start talking about other few points on the inheritors, and then we move on to the other areas of calculation. So let's look at a few pointers and chat a little bit now, inshallah. So let me see if I can get this going. Okay. All right, so let's look at what the chat have on today, inshallah. Question asked here, what you are saying is that the children of the first marriage are the ones to receive inheritance. Okay, I understand the question. Okay, and the next question, not only widows go through that type of hardship, and I did address it. SubhanAllah, I seen the question come before I actually answered the question already, that not only widows go through difficulties, but women who are divorced or women in a situation like that, and I do acknowledge that. That's why I try to buffer it before it actually reach any chat, but nonetheless, I did answer that question. Going back to the first question, however, where the question was asked here, that, you know, what are you saying is it that the children of the first marriage are the ones to receive inheritance? Okay, there are two parts of this part of it. The first marriage, and as I mentioned, if you come into a marriage, a second marriage, you come in with children, be it the father or be it the mother. Let's just choose one example. Let's say the father. The father comes into this marriage and he brings in two children. All right? And he marries this woman, and with this woman now he has children. He has children. Maybe he have an next two children. So now we have four children. So the father, as the father, has four children. But the woman in this marriage, what does she have? She has two children that is hers with this husband of hers, and she has two stepchildren, that is the husband's children. So we understand that. Now, if the woman were to die in this situation, then only the children that she has with her husband will inherit from her. This is what we are saying, right? And her children from the previous marriage, if she had children then, but she didn't come in this marriage in this instance of this example that I'm giving with any children. So they will benefit. Now, if the father had died, all right, if the father had died, now the father has these set of children, okay? These sets of children meaning the children from his marriage before, that he come into the marriage with two of them, and then he has two with this woman, then all four children will inherit equally because they are his children. Okay, that's how we mention it across here. Now, we are saying on the other hand, stepchildren is a different situation of stepchildren, right? So the first example you've given here, now, if you understand what I'm saying, is that from the first set of children, they inherit along with the children that you have currently combined together when you are the father of the children or the mother of the children. But when you come to stepchildren that you bring from the mother side or the father side, it is treated differently. But however, stepchildren to stepchildren, in this case, in other words, I'm your stepbrother, or I'm your stepsister, together they will inherit from the same parent. There's no difference there. So that's when it says stepchildren from the consanguine or the uterine, meaning from the mother side or from the father side, whichever side they are from, they combine. So if they are consanguine, meaning from the father side, together they are stepchildren together, they will benefit together. If they're uterine and from the mother side, they are stepchildren together, meaning the father, meaning if the current parents, along with the other set of children, will benefit together. Okay. And speaking about a man married 4 women, and each of them have children. Okay, subhanallah. All right, so if the man has children, and again now, if the man has children with these 4 women, and he dies, all of these children are entitled to inherit from him. Okay? But if all of these women that he married have children from other relationships, not with him, in other words, he married these 4 women, and these 4 women had children before he married them, and he dies, the only children that will benefit from him will be the children that he would have had with these women, along with the children that probably he would have had in other relationships prior to that. If you have 4 of them all together. If you have 4 of them and you're saying that he has children with all of them, right, and the other 3 women and they move out or whatever it is, then a different story. But we are saying once he is with these children, mothers, and he had children with all of these women, all of them, and they are your children, then definitely, yeah. Okay, so let's see what else we have here. We're going to close this now. Interesting, just one moment again. So the first marriage are the one to receive inheritance. What are you, so we understand the first question, right? Inheritance. Is that the children of the first marriage are the one to receive inheritance? No. Children from all the various marriages that you have, once they are your children, will inherit, whether it's 1 marriage, 2 marriage, 3 marriage, or 4 marriage. The next question here, if a parent adopt a child legally, meaning the law of the land, right, that we're saying, is it that this child then considered his or her child and can then be included in the will? No, an adopted child is not still your child. It's an adopted child. They have a parent and their parent must be known. However, if there's an adopted child, from an Islamic perspective, you can, in your third of the will or even whilst you're alive, take care of this child knowing that you have other children who will inherit legally. So therefore, the adopted child will not be treated as your child from an Islamic perspective, not in any way discriminating against this child. Because the Islamic law makes it very clear that the child that you have adopted, if this child parents is known, if this child parent will die, they are entitled to receive from their parents their full whatever their parents will leave for them behind. And that's why it's always important that that child parent be known of what they have to do. All right, so Khalif, and those who send questions out, I hope I did answer the question for you. And inshallah, next week we'll have to continue again, inshallah. But I will draw some references next class to this particular relationship that you're talking about, and we'll do some on the chat, and we start looking at the relationship, and then it'll come more clear when I start to show you the elimination process of who are eliminated on our will and who are added on our will, and who must receive on our will. So definitely we'll get to it, inshallah. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of us. We just have a couple more sessions before we close off for the year, which is that the last class will be in the first week of December. I think that's the date we have set. I'll give you that date again next week and confirm the date. But however, during this month, there will be some days we set aside for a little slight verbal exam or written type of true or false thing, and a very short thing between the class itself. All right, so no one should leave or run away and get frightened about tests or anything like that, but just bear it in mind, inshallah. And Jazakallah for joining this evening. Do encourage others to join the class. As you share the knowledge, inshallah, with them, how important this is for us to understand. Sometimes it might be found very complicated, but it is not. All of your discussing here is showing up what is important in relationship to us having a very important and fruitful relationship in terms of what we have here in our relationship. And if I don't answer the questions now, maybe I will continue to look at it later on, and I will send out the YouTube link, inshallah, when we are completed with the class, or tomorrow, inshallah. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.